I've never been a fan of long drives. There's something unsettling about hours of uninterrupted road, especially when you're alone. But last fall, I had no choice. My brother had just moved out to Bozeman, Montana, and was recovering from a nasty surgery. I volunteered to help him settle in, and since I had time off work, I figured a solo road trip from Eugene, Oregon, would be a nice change of pace. I loaded up my Subaru, packed some snacks, downloaded a few true crime podcasts, and set out just after dawn. The trip was supposed to take around 10 hours, give or take, depending on stops. I had driven through most of the first 6 without incident. Just trees, winding roads, and the occasional rest stop vending machine. By the time I hit the remote stretches of Idaho, the sun was starting to dip. That's when I noticed the temperature gauge on my dashboard was rising. Slowly at first, but steadily. I didn't think much of it, chalked it up to a sensor issue. But then the car started making a faint whining noise, like something was struggling. I pulled over near a gravel shoulder, about 15 miles outside of a town called Salmon. The road was empty, not a single vehicle in sight. I popped the hood and stood there, pretending I knew what I was looking at. I'm no mechanic. My best guess was something with the radiator, but honestly, I was mostly stalling, hoping the engine would cool down enough to drive to the next town. About 10 minutes later, I saw a rusted silver van slow down, then pull up behind me. The van looked like it hadn't been washed in years. The windows were tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. I'll admit, I was a little on edge. But then the driver's door opened, and a man stepped out, offering a wave. He looked to be in his mid-40s, wearing a mechanic's jumpsuit and a pair of steel-toed boots. His smile seemed genuine. "Trouble with the radiator?" he asked, walking up without hesitation. I nodded. He didn't wait for an invitation, just ducked under the hood and started poking around. "Name's Bill," he said. "I've worked on a few Subarus in my time." Something about his tone calmed me a bit. We talked for a few minutes while he fiddled with a hose, pretending like he knew what the issue was. I was grateful for the help. He told me it wasn't a quick fix, and that I might need to tow it into town. Then he said something that should have tipped me off. "You can't trust these little imports too much, you know?" He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen a few times before frowning. "Battery's dead. Mind if I borrow yours to call my buddy? He's got a flatbed truck. Might be able to get you into Salmon." I hesitated, just for a second, then handed it over. He took it and smiled, but his other hand was already reaching inside his jumpsuit. That's when he pulled out the gun. "Sit on the ground," he said quietly. No yelling, no threats, just a calm, practiced voice. I froze, but something in his eyes told me he wouldn't hesitate. I did what he asked. He patted me down, took my wallet, my backpack, and even asked me to recite my phone password. I gave it to him. Then he got in my car and drove off, leaving me stranded, phoneless, and completely stunned. Eventually, a trucker pulled over and gave me a lift into town. I filed a police report with the local sheriff. He nodded sympathetically, but without a plate or solid description, he didn't sound hopeful. I spent the night at a cheap motel, using the front desk phone to start canceling cards and trying to alert banks. I had no ID, no way to prove who I was. It took me 2 days to sort out just enough to get back home to Oregon. I never did make it to Montana. What happened next was the real nightmare. About 3 weeks later, I started getting letters from banks I didn't recognize. One welcomed me to their institution. Another confirmed that a new credit line had been opened in my name. At first, I thought it was just a scam mail, but then I saw a charge for over $700 at an electronics store in Pocatello, Idaho. My stomach dropped. That bastard had my social security number. It must have been in the old wallet I'd forgotten to clean out. He wasn't just spending my money, he was becoming me. I froze my credit, filed more police reports, and spent hours on the phone with customer service agents. No one had answers. The fraud escalated quickly. Insurance claims, tax filings, even a flagged attempt to access a loan application in my name. The worst came when I received a notice that someone had checked into an ER in Boise using my identity. It wasn't just financial anymore. If this guy messed up and got me listed as diabetic or allergic to something, it could literally kill me someday. At that point, I snapped. I was done playing defense. I started keeping a spreadsheet of every fraudulent activity I could confirm. I tracked purchase dates, locations, and store names. A pattern emerged. He was staying in the same corridor between Idaho and Nevada. Always small towns, always cash-heavy transactions. Late one night, I found a Facebook marketplace listing from a guy in Elko, Nevada, selling used power tools, electronics, and a leather duffel bag that looked exactly like the one stolen from my back seat. The photos were grainy, but I was certain it was mine. I contacted the seller using a burner email and said I was interested. He responded almost instantly, saying I could meet him the next day at a public rest stop off Highway 93. I took a screenshot, copied every word, and called the Elko County Sheriff's Department. At first, they were skeptical, but when I explained the trail of fraud and that this was possibly tied to a larger ID theft ring, they agreed to check it out. I gave them the burner email and waited, heart pounding. The next evening, I got a call from a deputy. They had staked out the meetup location, and the man had shown up in a beat-up blue van. When they tried to approach, he sped off. A short pursuit ended when he lost control and crashed into a shallow ravine. He wasn't badly hurt, but he was paranoid and shaking. When they mentioned stolen goods, he folded like paper. Claimed he was just reselling things a friend gave him. Said he didn't ask where it all came from. But inside his van, they found not only my duffel bag, but a stash of fake IDs, including one with my name and his photo. It turns out he was part of a 3-man crew, hitting isolated travelers and committing identity theft across several states. They operated under the radar, never hitting the same area twice, always moving. The police were able to use his cooperation to track down the other 2. One was caught in Reno, the other in Spokane. I wasn't the only victim. There were at least a dozen other people whose lives they'd hijacked. The last I heard, all 3 men were serving time in federal prison. The authorities said it was one of the most organized identity theft operations they'd seen in years. It took nearly a year to clean up the damage. My credit score tanked. I had to explain to employers and banks what had happened. I still get nervous opening official-looking mail. But I did get my life back. I guess that's why I'm finally writing this down. Not for sympathy, and definitely not for fame. Just to say, be careful out there. Never assume someone's kindness is genuine just because they seem helpful. Keep your ID somewhere secure, and if your gut tells you something's wrong, don't ignore it. The road can be a lonely place, and sometimes the real danger isn't getting lost, but who you might find along the way. Before we dive into the next story, if you're here for the first time, please consider subscribing to our channel and clicking the bell icon so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. Your support truly encourages us and helps this channel continue to grow. And don't forget to share these stories with your friends and family. Thank you. I don't usually share personal stories on the internet, especially ones that make me sound paranoid or delusional. But what happened to me and my girlfriend last fall on our road trip through Arizona still keeps me up at night. I keep wondering if it could have gone worse, if we could have disappeared like so many others you read about in forgotten Reddit threads and old missing persons databases. We were doing a loop through the Southwest, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and back through Utah, with the intent to stop at a bunch of parks and offbeat roadside attractions. It was supposed to be a celebration trip. My girlfriend Cass had just passed her board exams, and I had wrapped up a brutal contract job in LA. We had nothing but time, a reliable car, and a mutual craving for silence and stars. We'd mapped out most of the route in advance, but there were still some spontaneous detours. That's part of the road trip charm, right? Drive until you're tired, or until something weird and interesting pops up on the GPS. We didn't think twice when we saw a small state highway veering south from our planned route just outside of Winslow. The sign read, Chola Ridge Scenic Route, 49 miles. The road was narrow and lined with weathered scrub and thorny mesquite. It was completely empty, not another vehicle in sight. We drove for about 30 minutes without seeing a single house or gas station. Cass joked that we had entered a no-cell zone, and when I checked my phone, she was right. 0 bars. Normally, I'd keep driving through it, but the gas gauge had dipped below a quarter tank, and I was already sweating the idea of getting stranded in the desert. So when we saw a hand-painted sign that read, Fuel plus snacks in 2 miles, pointing down a gravel road, we decided to check it out. The gas station wasn't what I expected. It was a squat, concrete building surrounded by decaying trucks, rusted-out coolers, and a sun-bleached American flag. There was only one pump, and it looked ancient, like something out of the 1950s. Still, the digital screen was on, and the price was surprisingly normal. No signs of life, though. No clerk. No customers. Not even a dog. "I'll go inside," Cass said, grabbing her wallet. I stayed by the pump and started fueling. The nozzle clicked after barely 2 gallons. I tried again. Same thing. I tapped the screen. "Please see the attendant." A few minutes passed, and Cass didn't come back. I walked up to the front door. The windows were too dusty to see through clearly, and the door creaked when I opened it. Inside, the lights were on, flickering fluorescent tubes humming above narrow aisles filled with expired candy, deflated chip bags, and old, crusted-over drink coolers. "Cass?" I called out. No response. I walked past the counter. No clerk. No bell to ring. Just a rotary phone and a row of dusty lighters. I called out louder. "Cass, where are you?" Still nothing. I checked the restroom. It was unlocked. Empty. I started to panic. Maybe she had gone out the back. I headed to the rear of the building and pushed through the metal emergency door. Behind the station was a field of dirt and broken cacti, and nothing else. I spun around, completely confused. That's when I noticed it. A pair of boot prints leading into the brush. They weren't Cass's shoes. I was about to shout again when I heard it, whispering. It was faint, almost like wind, but unmistakably human. I followed the sound past the building and around to the other side, where an old RV sat on blocks. The windows were blacked out with aluminum foil. I took a step closer, and that's when I saw her, Cass, stumbling out from the RV's side door. Her eyes were wide, her breathing shallow, and she looked like she'd just run a marathon. "Go," she said. "We have to go. Now." We bolted back to the car. She was crying as I floored it back onto the gravel road. The rearview mirror showed nothing but dust, but I didn't slow down until we hit pavement again. We didn't talk for a while. Eventually, I asked, "What happened in there?" Cass didn't answer right away. Her hands were trembling. She took a deep breath and told me. She had gone inside to ask about the gas pump. No one was behind the counter. As she wandered deeper into the store, a door behind the counter creaked open. A man stepped out, tall, wiry, maybe late 50s. He didn't say a word, just stared. She asked if the pump was working, but he just smiled. Not friendly, more like amused. Then another person came out of the back, this one younger, maybe in his 20s, but with the same dead expression. Cass backed up, instinctively sensing something was wrong. That's when the older man said, "Why don't you come around back?" We got more there. She refused, but before she could get out the front, the younger guy moved fast, cutting her off. They didn't touch her, just herded her toward the back. They kept saying strange things like, "He doesn't like to be kept waiting," and "You'll be lucky if you're chosen." They pushed her into the RV. Inside, there was a table covered in Polaroids. Some of them showed people, men, women, kids, all standing outside the gas station. Others, well, they showed the same people in different states. Tied up, eyes closed. Some of the photos were too blurry to make out. Others were crystal clear. Cass said she heard movement coming from behind a curtain in the RV. Whoever, or whatever, was behind it was making a wheezing, mechanical breathing sound. That's when she ran. And thank God she did. After we got back to the main road, we drove for hours before finding a real gas station. I used the landline inside to call the police and tell them what had happened. They said they'd send someone to check it out. A week later, I called back for a follow-up. The woman on the line told me the address I gave them didn't lead to any existing structure. According to their patrol, there was no building, no gas station, not even a gravel road. I know how that sounds. I swear on my life. I have photos of the gas pump on my phone. I even kept the receipt from the 2 gallons I pumped. It's real. Someone, or something, is out there on those forgotten roads, waiting for travelers who get just desperate enough to stop. If you ever find yourself low on gas, and you see a sign pointing to a remote station not listed on any map, keep driving. No matter how low the tank gets, just keep driving. There's something about road trips that's always appealed to me. Maybe it's the illusion of freedom, or the chance to leave everything behind for a few hours, or days, with nothing but highway and horizon. In 2015, I was 26, recently divorced, and trying to get a fresh start. I had just moved to Flagstaff, Arizona, for a new job, and figured a weekend drive to unwind was exactly what I needed. My cousin Brandon, who had just finished grad school, was visiting for the week, and my best friend Margot had come out from Santa Fe to join us for a few days. One afternoon, the 3 of us decided to take a spontaneous road trip, Flagstaff to Santa Fe, retracing Margot's route back home across northern Arizona and into New Mexico. Brandon borrowed a silver Honda CR-V from his sister, and we left early on a Saturday morning, eager to beat the heat. We had snacks, CDs, and the kind of optimism that only people with no idea what's coming can really feel. The roads were wide open, nothing but scrubland and buttes for miles. Somewhere past Gallup, we stopped at a gas station, stretched our legs, and got back on the road. We weren't even 30 minutes past that stop when Margot, who was driving at the time, noticed a dusty black Ford Explorer trailing behind us. It was riding our tail a little too close for comfort. "Probably just trying to pass," I said. But the SUV stayed behind us. We switched lanes. It followed. Margot slowed down a little. So did the Explorer. Then the lights came on, red and blue, flashing in the front grille. "Seriously," Brandon said. What did we do? It didn't make sense. We weren't speeding, hadn't missed any signs. But Margot pulled over anyway. The SUV stopped behind us. The desert air suddenly felt like it had doubled in pressure. "That doesn't look like a cop car," Brandon muttered. He wasn't wrong. The Explorer was matte black, no decals, and the person who stepped out wasn't wearing a uniform. Black pants, black windbreaker, sunglasses, and what looked like a walkie-talkie on his hip. No badge, no nameplate. The only thing remotely official was a patch on his sleeve. Something circular, but I couldn't read it. He didn't come up to the window right away. Instead, he just stood a few feet behind the car, arms crossed, staring. Brandon turned around in his seat to watch him. "Is he waiting for backup?" Margot asked, her voice low. "I don't know," I said. "Just don't roll the window down all the way." Finally, the guy approached the driver's side. Margot cracked the window. "License and registration," he said. No explanation, no greeting. His voice was flat, like he was reading off a script he didn't really believe in. Margot hesitated. "What's the issue, officer?" He didn't answer right away. Then, "You drifted into the shoulder back there." Routine check. That didn't happen. I knew it. Margot knew it. And judging by the look Brandon gave me, he knew it too. Still, Margot handed over her license. The man didn't even glance at it before walking back to his vehicle. "This doesn't feel right," I whispered. Brandon nodded. "If he comes back with anyone else, we get out of here. I don't care what excuse we need." We sat there for almost 10 minutes, watching him in the rearview mirror. He wasn't checking the license. He wasn't on the radio. He was just sitting there, watching. Then the passenger door opened and another man stepped out, dressed almost exactly the same. No badge, no uniform, just black on black and the same blank stare. "Okay, that's it," Brandon said. Margot threw the car into drive and hit the gas. The CRV lurched forward, tires spitting gravel. I expected to hear sirens, shouts, maybe even gunshots, but nothing came. We drove fast, but not too fast, trying not to draw more attention. "Maybe they were legit," Margot said after a while, though she didn't sound convinced. "I don't think so," Brandon replied. "What kind of cop just lets you drive off like that without saying a word?" We didn't see the Explorer again. When we reached Santa Fe, we told Margot's roommate everything. She was furious we hadn't called the police, but we didn't even know what to report. 2 men in black. A weird patch. No license plate we could remember. We spent Sunday recovering, trying not to obsess over it. By Monday, it was time to head back. This time, we took a slightly different route, heading south toward Interstate 40, then looping up into Arizona. The plan was to avoid any stretch of highway that was too remote. It was just past dusk when we hit a construction zone. 1-lane traffic, orange cones, a flagger with a stop sign. We rolled to a halt behind 3 other cars, waiting for the pilot vehicle to lead us through. It was quiet. Too quiet. Then I noticed the last car in line wasn't a car at all. It was a black SUV. Brandon saw it too. "No way," he whispered. This time, it was close enough for me to see the shape of the man in the driver's seat. Same build, same outline. Sunglasses on. At night. The moment the pilot truck waved the line forward, we followed the others through the winding, half-paved road. The SUV did not. "I'm not crazy, right?" Brandon said. "That's the same damn truck." "It has to be," I said. "They're watching us." After the construction zone ended, we drove in silence for almost 30 minutes. Then, from a side road, the SUV emerged again. Lights off, just far enough back that we could barely see it. But it was there. Always there. We didn't stop until we reached a gas station just outside Holbrook. It was well lit, semi-busy, and we parked right next to a big pickup with 2 men fueling up. Brandon and I just stayed by the car. "Maybe we should tell someone here," Brandon said. "Clerk, cops, anyone." Before I could answer, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. A man was standing across the lot, watching us. Same clothes, same sunglasses. Only this time, he wasn't in a car. Just standing, hands in his pockets, head tilted slightly like he was confused. Or amused. I tapped Brandon's arm. "Don't react. Just turn slowly." He did. His eyes went wide. "That's him," Brandon whispered to me. "We need to go. Now." As we backed out, I watched the man. He didn't move, didn't follow, just stood there, watching us leave. We didn't stop again until we were back in Flagstaff. That night, none of us slept. 2 weeks later, I was watching the local news when I saw a familiar SUV flash across the screen. A black Explorer had been used in a string of robberies and assaults, targeting travelers on remote highways. The suspects wore military-style clothing, posed as law enforcement, and often worked in teams of 2 or 3. They were still at large. I called the police. So did Margot and Brandon. We told them everything, but without plates, names, or clear photos, there wasn't much they could do. We asked if there was a connection to anything that had happened in Santa Fe or Gallup, but they wouldn't say. That was 10 years ago. I've taken a lot of road trips since then, but I don't drive that stretch of highway anymore. I don't trust anyone who pulls me over, and I don't ever ignore a gut feeling. Because that day, we were followed, hunted maybe, but we got lucky. Not everyone does.